Hey everyone, today I want to talk about two case studies of actual businesses on the internet that are really huge and how basically the winners ultimately chose to charge nothing in order to gain larger market share, and they often offer the better service and product anyways. So why is this such an important concept? Well, for internet businesses especially, gaining large market share is very important. Um, and so let me just give you the first example. Alibaba. Alibaba is a company, it's an internet-based company in China that's now expanding globally. I don't think it will really do well in America or other European countries, but it's doing very, very well in China and other places. And basically, it's similar to eBay in America. And so basically, over many, many years, 5 or 6 years, eBay and Alibaba, since its introduction, were two websites that were fighting head to head. And initially, eBay, they had a enormous, enormous advantage. They had large market share advantage, like 90% of people who needed the service used eBay. The difference though was the twofold really. The first one being that eBay charged for the service, while Alibaba made everything it did free. The second being that eBay was a known giant with tons of cash to spend. Alibaba, although it ended up getting some venture capital money, it really was the underdog by far. It reminds me of how Walmart was the underdog versus Kmart and Target. But we have here Alibaba as the underdog, and the most amazing decision it did was keep itself free, and that was its advantage. And in addition to that, it kept its services at the top level in quality. And from there, it was just easy. But again, it took many, many years, but you can see the charts, the market share that eBay had went from 90% all the way down to 0%, and Alibaba just took over after, a few percentage change every year. And it's, in hindsight, it's so obvious and simple. But in reality, there's also a lot of detailed strategies in addition to that makes the story a little bit complicated. And more so than that, though, it's very interesting because when this all was going around, again, when you're not looking at it in hindsight and you're experiencing it day by day, the changes are not there and you can't see it on a yearly, annual basis. And in addition to that, though, eBay was saying all this stuff like, we have all this money, we're the big gorilla, we will take over China's market, and more so than anything, we have a service that makes money because we're charging. Look at Alibaba. And this is something they used a lot. This was the reasoning that they used quite a lot. And they said, look, we're making actual tangential money, and we are making earnings. Look at Alibaba, it's not making a cent despite all this stuff they're putting into it. How on earth is that better than us? And so that sort of reasoning, it made logical sense. But now in hindsight, when you look at it, what Alibaba did by making its service equal, if not better in terms of quality, and free, is that competition drives all the customers to the better service. When you're the customer and you don't really have any brand loyalty or company loyalty, you have no real need for it, you just want the best product, best service, you're going to go with the one that's free. And so over time, because the market share using the internet is growing, and at the same time it's very large, it's in the millions. Slowly everything went over to Alibaba, and it had now captured a large market share. Everyone was starting to get used to it. They liked it. It was, pretty decent. It was, it was getting better every day. And ultimately, finally, Alibaba introduced one paid service, which was pretty much that small businesses could now pay to get themselves listed at the top in certain search results for certain products. And they made a lot of money because of their huge amount of users. When you have that many people, and just like 1% of people use your services, that's a heck of a lot of money. And so this case study really illustrates, and again, it's the whole Alibaba story is much more complicated than that, but it's ultimately what I want to illustrate is that as far as internet markets go, it's very, very useful to capture market share rather than in what eBay did was pretty much try and make money up front and slowly over time lose market share because of that and get phased out. And it's a very interesting story. Now, now Alibaba has such a stronghold. It's pretty much a monopoly like other internet businesses that I can think of, but it literally seems to have a stronghold. It is the thing. There is no second. There is no competitor. If a competitor were to come in, it has to face Alibaba, which now has almost 100% market share in China. eBay's withdrawn, and what possible thing can you do to ever compete this thing? In the short run, the next year, 2 years, impossible. Unless you would need some ridiculous strategy in the 5-10 year mark, which is also possible, but it'd be very tough to do because Alibaba has the best service. It's known throughout China. It has things people need, and everyone uses it, and everyone's already set up shop there, and all this stuff that makes switching difficult. And I think it reminds me a lot of other monopoly internet businesses. Like a lot of people are scared that Facebook's gonna go away soon, or other places like Twitter, and they reference MySpace. They're like, "Oh, look how great MySpace was, and now it's gone." That's not the same thing, because Facebook has a huge monopoly in certain countries. The reason being because it's not like MySpace in that it's it's this fun thing. Facebook is ridiculously integrated and so much ahead of the competition. For you to come up with some competitor internet website to create the same social networks and algorithms and all the features that Facebook has, instant messaging, chat, groups, everything, the details that link immediately to the school you went to, all these things, it provides a very strong, almost monopoly for internet social networks for Facebook. As far as generic social networks go, it's too strong a thing. On MySpace, it really wasn't like that. I mean, it sort of was, but the whole purpose behind it was, it was more fun. They didn't really have, it wasn't like you can instant message people. It wasn't like you can, it's a network where you can easily find photos of people you knew, or join groups of people that you were friends with, and so on. So now, moving on to the second case study. So this one is another similar example. Yelp versus a company, I think it's called Zygot. Zygot is the name. Hold on one second, I'm going to search it up. Zagat. So Zagat is still around, but it's nothing close to what it was before the internet came around. Zagat was this review publishing company, from what I can tell, and it published reviews of all the restaurants and what people said about them and what was good, what was bad, what was the best item on the menu, and so forth. Then the internet came along, and then Yelp.com came along, and Yelp is pretty much an online review system for all these things: restaurants, fast food joints, and therefore you had a competition going. So Yelp was zooming ahead before, and Zagat really didn't acknowledge the internet until Yelp had a substantial lead in terms of the amount of users using Yelp on the internet, millions. And ultimately Zagat finally started using it, but from the get-go it decided to make it some sort of publishing service, where it was, you had to charge on it. You had a subscription charge of like $35 per year to see the reviews, and ultimately it seems like they were aware of Yelp, and they knew that Yelp was kind of their competition, so they started doing stuff that Yelp did. Yelp made a app on the iPhone. Zagat did the same thing. Yelp, from the get-go, made their service on the internet, their website, free, and they made their app free. Zagat, they only allowed you to view it if you had this annual subscription, and then when you had to buy the app, it cost $10, which was a lot back then and still a lot now. And so what you see here is I guess you could call a brick and mortar establishment business that was doing very well before, and they were slow to acknowledge a change in dynamics in the business industry. But more so than that, they didn't match their competition. Both eBay and Zagat, I think, would have held on longer had they matched their competition in pricing. I think a lot of the reasons this occurred was because of just how they thought before, where they had come from. eBay had come from a already very prosperous top player in the United States. Zagat was this very successful brick and mortar publishing establishment that was making a lot of money. So to them, it just didn't make sense not to price things and give it away for free. You know, I know for sure that people with deep business knowledges and deep business universe, like Sam Walton and maybe Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, they will have understood it enough to consider doing it. When a competitor comes out, as a business, I think one of the biggest things you need to look out for is keep your eye on the competitor. Sam Walton spent more time in the competitor's store than anyone and any customers, and he did some crazy stuff. Always walking the competitor stores, taking tape recorders and measuring aisles, doing everything to see if the competitors were doing something, even the slightest thing better than he did. And he was such an enthusiast about it that he literally he was thrown in jail for it because he wanted to see if someone knew something he didn't when he traveled to Latin American I guess you can call them discount stores. And he was also, arrested, or not really arrested, but his tape recorder got confiscated for doing that in a competitor store. And he was known for spending more time in the competitor store than anyone, and he admitted that. So, I think that's one thing that most people don't understand. You need to recognize your competition, what they're doing, and the ultimate thing is to do everything better than them, as better as you can. And what they failed to do because of, partially because of past ties and past ways of thinking and not really understanding, this is the priority is capturing market share and really establishing the big brand and destroying your competition rather than making money now. And they ultimately uh, fell into a much smaller position because they didn't match their competitor's price. If Zagat had literally made everything free as well, and it had all this information already in its databases of all these reviews, it could have potentially beat out Yelp. Yelp still had that, potential differing advantage in that it offered uh, real internet users and customers to post photos and videos. I don't know about videos, photos and actual reviews of restaurants. But if Zagat had incorporated and copied all that, boom, it would have worked, and they would have done a lot better. And that's what one of the things Sam Walton says. Sam Walton, he founded Walmart, one of the richest people in the world. He says, almost every great thing I've done, I've copied from someone else. And usually he copied legally. Oftentimes, some of this stuff doesn't have patents on it, or like you can't really say that's my intellectual property. Sometimes you can, but you'll be surprised how much you can copy. And I do think like a lot of business owners still, and I used to think like this before I started reading business books. They think it's immoral to copy. It's just not right. But in the business jungle, it's like it's not about right or wrong. It's delivering the best product to the customer. And if this person's offering something for free, and are you really not gonna do it because you don't want to copy that person? Or if this person's offering a third color or third design, and it's sweeping in the crowd, or some new strategy in selling, are you going to adopt it or fall prey to going bankrupt? Sam Walton, he was actually in a convenience store industry before he started seeing these things called discount stores come into the picture. And he realized immediately that if he didn't start creating discount stores and pricing and doing stuff that way, he would have gone bankrupt. And so he adopted it immediately. And I still see there's business owners that still don't really understand this. And I think it's partially due to certain extreme levels of copying done in places like China, and then confusing it with counterfeiting, which is something different, and all sorts of different stuff. But I think a lot of people are not using it properly. And again, I think the same thing with eBay. Similar mistake. And for both Alibaba and Yelp, despite them not having anything that they charge money for and everything was free, they were still able to generate enormous offers from big companies. eBay's CEO at the time talked with Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, at one point deep into the competition to see if they could arrange some sort of settlement. And Yelp, during its lifespan, I guess you could say, it was offered like 500 million for the acquisition of the entire business by Google, and around 750 million by Microsoft. And Yelp declined both offers. So I think Yelp's still completely free, and it's many years later. Zagat's still around for some reason. It started incorporating a lot of other stuff, but it's definitely not doing as well as Yelp. And here we have Yelp, who's now the big daddy. But I do think with a certain, no matter what industry or company you're at, whether you're the big dog or you're the underdog, if you're the big dog, you always have to keep your eyes peeled. You can never get um, too stagnant. You have to keep vigilant, as Walton said when his establishment, Walmart and Sam's Club, just got too big. I mean, not too big, but just ridiculously big. $1 billion cap company, and that's what he wrote in his book. A book he wrote on his dying bed. He said, "You gotta watch out and prepare and be careful." And I have to make sure that my associates stay vigilant, because if they don't, the same thing will happen to us, just like how Walmart ended up overcoming Kmart and Target as the extreme underdog. Um, and I think that's so true for so many reasons. And I think later on Walton illustrates just how tough the business jungle is, and how even if you have firm establishments, you can over time it will erode. Um, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, for instance, like there's only like one company in it that's still around. I think it's U.S. Steel. It's like the 30 biggest companies in the United States, and I would say like if you look at what was in it like 50 years ago, like only one of them's around, and that just shows you it's just one instance of the competitiveness of the business jungle. So you really need to do everything you can to, again, within legal and moral bounds, to keep your competitive edge, your moat, and grow it and make it larger and deeper. I think Microsoft's doing pretty well, Facebook's doing pretty well, but again, that doesn't mean it's given its current price, it's a worthy investment. So don't think this is some sort of stock tip or anything like that. But the business is doing pretty well right now. I guess, yeah, I just want to conclude by saying that as far as certain industries, as shown, even if you're not making a cent, that doesn't matter. If you have such a huge market share, making money is it's probable. You can most likely do it eventually if you're the only big player and there's no competitors anymore because you've pushed them out. That's ultimately how Alibaba, I think, ended up creating its wealth. I mean, you can definitely think of ways of making money later on after you've gotten the market share. The one big counter to that would probably be Wikipedia, one of like the biggest websites in the entire internet. And I guess you could say it still makes a lot of money, but it's all through voluntary donations, which is tough to fundraise for. But I am very happy that it is donation. I guess you could call it not a public company, because and this is sort of a tangent, but the reason why Wikipedia does that is because if it had to rely on advertisements or stuff like that, companies that pay for the advertisements may not like certain things Wikipedia has said about its history that may reflect the company or the person funding Wikipedia in a bad light, and it would be like, remove it. And Wikipedia's purpose, which I think is such a noble thing, is for the most objective truth to be out there, not a biased, censored, politically skewed truth. Now, Wikipedia is not perfect in providing this, but it's probably a lot better than if its founders or its current executives running it. Apparently, it has a very small team of like 50 people running it, or 100. If they decided, oh, our purpose is to make the most money possible, then Wikipedia would not be what it is. So again, it's a tangent topic, but It's not related, but hey, thank you so much for watching, and if you like this video, leave it a like. If you found it very informative and educational, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It'll let you know when I upload a new informative video. And if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comments below. And I encourage you to leave a comment that will provide value to the community viewing this video. So whether it's some sort of fact or quote or something that can add on to the information and knowledge that we all learn while watching this video and reading comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later in the next video.